My daughter-in-law, salesperson of the year at my son's company, mocked me at dinner. I smiled. Jokes are fun. Mine, I own 67% of your company. You're fired. I never thought that the worst evening of my life would begin with a toast to my daughter-in-law's success. We were sitting at the table in their new house. Kyle and Shannon had recently moved to a neighborhood where people with money live. Not rich, but those who consider themselves rich. The dining room was decorated in gray tones with abstract paintings on the walls that meant nothing but looked expensive. Shannon had set the table perfectly. A white tablecloth, silver cutlery, candles in glass candlesticks. Everything is like in magazines about the lives of successful people. Kyle sat at the head of the table, smiling broadly, holding a glass of wine in his hand. My son is 29. He looks like his father. The same dark curls, the same stubborn chin. 5 years ago, he started a medical equipment sales company. Started from scratch. Worked like crazy. I was proud of him. I'm still proud of him. Even after everything that happened. Shannon sat next to him. 32 years old, blonde with perfect hair, wearing a beige dress that accentuated her slender figure. She held a glass statuette in her hands, an award for Best Salesperson of the Month. She smiled as if she had just won an Oscar. To my right sat Amber, my younger daughter. 26 years old, curly dark hair, similar to mine. She works as a veterinary technician and loves animals more than people. Her husband, Travis, an electrician, a quiet guy with a red beard, sat next to her and stared at his plate, as if hoping that dinner would end as soon as possible. Kyle raised his glass. "To my wife," he said solemnly. To Shannon, who has proven that talent and perseverance always win out. She is the best salesperson in our company, and I am proud of her every day. Everyone raised their glasses. So did I. Shannon smiled, but her gaze slid over me, quickly, almost imperceptibly. There was something cold in it. "Thank you," she said, tucking her hair behind her ear. "It really means a lot to me. You know, not every woman can balance a career and a family. But I believe that if you want something, you can get it. You just can't sit around doing nothing." She paused, then added, looking straight at me, "It's nice to see someone succeed while others just watch." Kyle laughed. Travis laughed too. Amber tensed, but said nothing. I felt something tighten inside me. Not for the first time. Shannon had been throwing out comments like that regularly for the past 2 years, always with a smile, always as if she were joking. "Dolores, how do you spend your time at home? Watching TV series, I bet. Or, hey, it must be easy living off your husband's money, right?" She never said it directly, but the subtext was clear. I'm worthless. I do nothing. I'm a burden. I put my glass down on the table. "You know, Shannon," I said calmly, "joking is really fun. Want to hear my joke?" She raised an eyebrow and smiled with interest. "Sure." I took a deep breath. "I own 67% of your husband's company, and now you're fired." There was silence. Not a normal pause in conversation, but a deathly, heavy silence. When everyone freezes with their glasses in their hands and looks at you as if you've just announced the end of the world. Shannon stopped smiling. Kyle put down his glass, his face turning pale. "Mom, what are you saying?" he muttered. "What you heard," I replied. "When you started the company 5 years ago, I invested your father's money in it, $130,000. You asked for help, and I gave it to you. But I registered the shares in my name because I wasn't sure you could handle it. You were young and inexperienced. I wanted to protect Richard's money." Kyle looked at me as if he were seeing me for the first time. "But you never said you owned a controlling stake. You never asked. You thought it was a formality, that I was just a mom who sat at home and did nothing." Shannon laughed nervously. "This is a joke, right?" "Dolores, you realize this is unprofessional? Firing someone over dinner? Just as unprofessional as humiliating someone at their own table," I replied. Amber grabbed my hand under the table. Shannon stood up, her face red. "Kyle, say something." Kyle was silent. He looked at me as if trying to understand who I really was. Then I got up, grabbed my bag, and left the dining room. Behind me, I heard Shannon start to scream and Kyle try to calm her down. Amber ran out after me onto the porch. "Mom, are you serious?" she whispered. "Yes. But why now? Why like this?" I turned to her. My hands were shaking, but my voice was firm, because I'm tired of being invisible and hearing insults about myself. I got in the car and drove home. I trembled the whole way. Not from anger, from fear, from the realization of what I had just done. I ruined the evening. Maybe I ruined my relationship with my son, but I couldn't take it anymore. 10 years ago, my husband Richard died of a heart attack. He was 52. We'd been together for 25 years. Not perfect, but ours. He worked as a supply manager for a construction company, and I was a business analyst for a pharmaceutical company. We earned good money and saved for our retirement. After his death, I received his insurance money, sold his shares, and invested everything. My children thought I was just grieving. In fact, I was learning to live again. I quit my job because I couldn't stand going to the office anymore, where everyone looked at me with pity. For 10 years, I stayed at home, read books, tended the garden, and helped Amber with her 2 dogs. The children thought I had lost interest in life. But 2 years ago, I started consulting for startups online, helping them with financial analysis, forecasts, and budgets. I was earning good money. No one noticed because I didn't talk about it, because no one asked. The next morning, I woke up to Kyle's phone call. I didn't answer the phone. He called 6 more times. Then he sent a message. "Mom, we need to talk." I dialed his number in the evening. "I'm listening," I said coldly. "Mom, don't get so worked up about quitting," he said. "Let's just pretend it was a bad joke. By Shannon, you responded with a bad joke, and that's the end of it, okay? Kyle, okay. I'm willing to take back what I said about quitting," I said. "If Shannon apologizes and changes her attitude toward me, that's all I want. A little respect." He was silent for a few seconds. "Okay, I'll talk to her. Thank you." I hung up and felt relieved. Maybe things could still be fixed. Maybe Shannon would realize she had crossed the line. Maybe... 2 days later, on Wednesday afternoon, Shannon knocked on my door. I opened it and saw her on the porch with a bouquet of yellow roses in her hands. She was wearing jeans and a light-colored blouse, her hair tied back in a ponytail, her face lightly made up. She looked young, almost vulnerable. "Dolores," she said quietly, "may I come in?" I stepped back and let her in. We went into the kitchen. Shannon put the flowers on the table and sat down across from me. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. I noticed it right away. "I want to apologize for that dinner," she began. "What I said was tactless. I didn't mean to offend you. Sometimes I'm too blunt. It's my problem. Kyle always tells me I need to be softer." I was silent, looking at her. She continued. "I respect you, Dolores. You've done a lot for Kyle, for this family, and I want everything to be okay between us." "Really good." Her voice sounded sincere, almost convincing. Almost. "Shannon," I said slowly, "I don't want a war either. I'm willing to rescind the dismissal, but let's start with a clean slate, both of us." She nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yes, of course. A clean slate." Then she stood up, walked over to me, and hugged me. I felt her arms lightly touch my shoulders. The hug was brief, formal, cold. When she stepped back, I saw something in her eyes that made me uneasy, but I decided to give her a chance anyway. She is, after all, my son's wife and the mother of my grandchildren. The next 2 weeks were uneventful. Kyle called a few days later to thank me for being accommodating. Shannon returned to work. She even sent me a message with a photo of a bouquet on the kitchen table. "Thank you for understanding." I started to think that everything was working out. And then Amber called me on Saturday evening. "Mom, I heard something strange," she said. "What was it?" "I ran into Linda Collins at the vet clinic. Do you remember her? She works at the same company as Kyle." "I remember her." She said Shannon is telling everyone that you threatened to fire her because you were jealous of her success, that you can't accept that she's achieved more than you have. I clenched the phone. She said that? Yes, Linda was surprised because she knows you're not like that. But Shannon is telling everyone in the sales department. I thanked Amber and hung up. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. So Shannon hadn't changed. She was just playing a role. I decided to go to the office. Officially, I had the right to do so as the owner of 67% of the shares. But I hadn't been there in years. Kyle ran the business on his own. I trusted him and I didn't interfere. Now I understood that trust wasn't enough. You have to see things with your own eyes. On Monday, I arrived at the company's office. It was a small 3-story building in an industrial area near the highway, a gray building with large windows and a sign that read Medicore Solutions. I went up to the second floor where the sales department was located. The secretary, Viv, a young girl with red hair, looked up from her desk in surprise. Mrs. Kittredge, we didn't know you were coming. I'm the owner, Viv. I don't need to give advance notice. She nodded, looking embarrassed. I walked to Kyle's office. He wasn't there. Viv said he had gone to a meeting with a supplier. Then I asked about Shannon. She's in the conference room, Viv replied, meeting with a client. I thanked her and walked down the hall. The conference room was at the end, with glass doors through which you could see everything that was going on inside. I walked closer and saw Shannon at the table. She was talking to a man in his 40s, wearing glasses and a gray suit. He was smiling and nodding. Shannon was gesturing, pointing to something on her laptop screen. The meeting lasted another 15 minutes. When the man left, I went inside. Shannon looked up, saw me, and smiled. Dolores, what a surprise. I want to be in the loop, I said. I have a board meeting scheduled for Friday. Please send me the reports for the last quarter. She nodded. Of course, I'll send them tonight. But the reports never arrived. Not that evening, nor the next day. I sent her a message. Shannon, where are the reports? She replied 3 hours later. Sorry, I forgot. I'll send them tomorrow. Nothing came tomorrow either. On Friday, when I arrived at the board meeting, Shannon said to me with a guilty smile, Dolores, I didn't know you were coming. Kyle said the meeting was postponed until next week. I looked at her. Who rescheduled it? He said you did, but I didn't reschedule anything. I called Kyle directly at the office. He answered on the third ring. Mom, what's going on? Why was the meeting rescheduled without my knowledge? Shannon said you asked for it to be rescheduled, that you weren't feeling well. I slowly turned back to Shannon. She was standing by the window, looking at me with an innocent expression. Kyle, I didn't say anything like that. He fell silent. This is some kind of misunderstanding, he said finally. We'll figure it out later. I hung up and left the office. I drove home, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my hands hurt. I knew it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional. Shannon was playing with me. That evening, I started writing everything down. Every incident, every accident. I dated it, saved the messages, took screenshots. If this was war, I would be ready. A week later, I came back to the office, this time unexpectedly. I went up to the 3rd floor, where the management offices are located. I wanted to talk to Kyle, but he was gone again. Passing by a small meeting room, I heard a familiar voice. Shannon. I stopped at the door. It was half open. Shannon was sitting inside, and across from her was Marlo Grayson, our family lawyer, an old friend of Richard's, a man in his 60s, gray-haired, wearing a brown jacket. So, you're asking if Dolores's rights to the shares can be challenged? Marlo said slowly. Theoretically, Shannon replied, if we can prove that she is not actively involved in the management of the company. She hasn't worked at all for 10 years. Can we use that? I froze. Marlo sighed. Shannon, it's a complicated issue. Technically, if you can prove that the owner is not fulfilling her duties as a co-founder or investor, you can file a lawsuit. But Dolores has not formally violated any agreements. She is the owner. It is her right to be passive or active. But what if she makes decisions that harm the company? For example, firing key employees for no reason. Marlo fell silent. Are you talking about yourself? I'm speaking hypothetically. I stopped listening. I entered the meeting room. They both stood up when they saw me. Shannon turned pale. Marlo looked uncomfortable. Dolores, he began. Marlo, we'll talk later, I said coldly. Alone. He nodded and left. Shannon gathered the papers from the table and tried to walk past me. I blocked her way. What were you doing here? I asked quietly. Consulting with a lawyer. It's my right. You're trying to take my shares away from me. That's paranoia, Dolores. She left, leaving me standing in the empty conference room. I sat down on a chair and felt a chill run down my spine. She wasn't going to change her mind. She was just buying time to prepare her attack. That evening, I called Marlo to my house. He arrived 2 hours later, looking tired. Dolores, I didn't know she would ask about it, he said, sitting down on the sofa. What specifically did she ask? He sighed. Can your rights to the shares be challenged if it can be proven that you are not actively involved in the management of the company? I told her it was difficult, but theoretically possible. And what did you advise her? Nothing. I said it wasn't my area of expertise. If she wants to sue you, she should find another lawyer. I nodded. Marlo looked at me. Dolores, what's going on? Why does Shannon want to take your shares away? Because I'm in her way. I didn't explain any further. Marlo left, and I sat in the dark living room, looking at Richard's photo on the mantelpiece. What would you do? I thought. But there was no answer. The next morning, I wrote an official letter to the company's legal department. Dismissal of Shannon Kittredge from the position of sales manager reason. Violation of corporate ethics, attempt to manipulate the owner of the company. I signed it and sent it. That evening, Kyle called me. He didn't say hello. He just yelled into the phone. You're crazy. Shannon is pregnant. She's carrying my child, and you're firing her. I clenched the phone. I didn't know she was pregnant. Does that change anything? No. Mom, you ruined everything. Do you understand? You ruined my family by taking away her job. I felt my hands shaking. So she has something to do at home, I said quietly, and I hung up the phone. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the wall. Pregnant. She's pregnant. I didn't know, but that doesn't change anything. She tried to destroy me. I won't let her do that. The phone rang again. Kyle. I didn't answer. He called 8 more times. Then he sent a message. You're not my mother anymore. I read it over and over until the letters blurred before my eyes. The first week without Kyle was the hardest. I woke up at night to check my phone. Maybe he would text me, maybe he would call, but the screen remained blank. During the day, I forced myself to get up, make coffee, and sit down at the computer. Working online helped me take my mind off things, but in the evening, when it got quiet, I would sit on the couch and look at the photos of the twins on the mantelpiece. Mia and Liam, 6 years old, curly dark hair, like Kyle's blue eyes, like mine. I saw them every Saturday. We baked cookies, drew pictures, watched cartoons. Now Kyle wouldn't even let me call them. Once I tried, I dialed his home phone number. Shannon picked up the phone and immediately hung up when she heard my voice. Amber called me every day. She tried to be supportive, but I could hear the confusion in her voice. Mom, can you talk to Kyle again? She said, he's just angry. He needs time. I tried. He won't answer. Maybe you could write to Shannon. Tell her you're sorry. I'm not sorry. She sighed. One evening, she came to see me with Travis. We sat in the kitchen, drinking tea. Travis was silent for a long time, staring into his mug. And then he said, Dolores, maybe you've gone too far. Shannon is pregnant. This is no time for revenge. I put my mug down on the table. It's not revenge, Travis. It's protection. From what? From being destroyed. He didn't answer. Neither did Amber. They thought I'd gone too far, that I was too proud to apologize. But they didn't see her consulting with a lawyer. They didn't know she wanted to take everything away from me. Travis finished his tea and stood up. I'm not sure if you're right, but anyway, I won't say anything, he said quietly and went to his car. Amber stayed for a few more minutes. She hugged me before leaving. Mom, I'm on your side, always, but I'm scared you'll be alone. I'm not alone, I replied, though I wasn't sure that was true. Okay, the next morning, I made a decision. If Kyle won't listen to me, I'll find evidence he can't ignore. I found Cleveland Morse through a friend of Richard's who used to work for an insurance company. Cleveland was a former police officer who now worked as a private investigator, corporate affairs, partner vetting, financial fraud. He was about 50 with short gray hair and a tired face that showed he had seen it all. We met at his office on the outskirts of town, a small room in an old building, cluttered with files and papers. He sat at his desk, looking at me intently. So, Mrs. Kittredge, you want me to investigate your daughter-in-law? Yes. For what reason? I told him everything. About the dinner, the threats, the meeting with the lawyer, the incidents. Cleveland listened, nodded, and took notes. And what exactly do you want to know? Everything. Everything about Shannon Kittredge. Her finances, her connections, her past. I want to know who she really is. He looked at me for a long time. It won't be cheap. Money is not a problem. He nodded. Okay, then give me a week. I paid $5,000 in advance and went home. I hardly slept all week. I worked, answered client emails, consulted with startups. But my thoughts kept returning to Shannon, to Kyle, to the twins. I imagined them celebrating Liam's birthday without me. He turned 6 on Wednesday. I bought him a gift, a radio-controlled car, but I never sent it. What was the point? Kyle wouldn't let them take it. A week later, Cleveland called. Mrs. Kittredge, we need to meet. I have some information, and it turned out to be really interesting, just as you thought. We met in that same small room. Cleveland put a thick folder on the table. He opened it. There were photographs, lots of photographs. Shannon sitting in a restaurant with her husband. They were laughing, holding hands. Shannon was leaving a hotel, the same man by her side. They were kissing by a car. Who is this? I asked, even though I already knew. Derek Knowles, a medical equipment supplier. His company has been working with Medicor Solutions for 3 years. I looked at the photos. Derek looked about 40, dark hair, athletic build, expensive suit. In one photo, he had his arm around Shannon's waist, and she was looking at him in a way she never looked at Kyle. How long have they been together? At least a year, maybe longer. They meet twice a week, always at the same hotel, the Riverside Inn outside of town. I checked the records. The room is in Derek's name, but Shannon always comes in through the side entrance. Cleveland got the other documents. But that's not all. I checked the financial transactions between Derek's company and Medicor Solutions. There are contracts for equipment supplies. Some of them look strange. He showed me a table, numbers, dates, amounts. Look, here's a contract for $50,000, supply of tomographs. But when I contacted the Medicor warehouse, it turned out that the tomographs never arrived. The contract was paid for, but the equipment is missing. I studied the numbers. Is this a fictitious contract? It looks like it, and there are 3 more contracts like this. The total amount is about $180,000. The money went to Derek's company account, and Shannon received bonuses for successful sales. She earned about $45,000 a year from this. I felt a chill down my spine. She wasn't just cheating on Kyle, she was stealing from the company. Cleveland took out another piece of paper. And here's the correspondence between Shannon and Derek. I accessed her work email. Technically illegal, but you asked for everything. Keep in mind, though, that this shouldn't be shown in court. I took the paper. It was a printout of emails. I read them and felt my heart sink. Derek, Kyle is going on another business trip. We can meet on Wednesday evening. Shannon, are you sure he doesn't suspect anything? He doesn't suspect anything. He thinks I'm working late. What if someone from the office sees us? No one will see us. I'm careful. I read on. There were letters about contracts, about money, about how they divided the profits. But the most frightening were the personal letters. I'm tired of playing the role of the perfect wife. Kyle is boring. He only talks about business. With you, I feel alive. Shannon, you said you'd leave him when the time was right. I will. But first, I need money. His mother has shares. If I can convince Kyle to strip her of her control, we'll get everything. I put the paper down. My hands were shaking. She had planned it all. She wanted to destroy me, take control of the company, and then leave Kyle. What do you want me to do with this? Cleveland asked. I need time to think. I took the folder and drove home. I sat at the kitchen table all evening, flipping through photos, letters, documents. I knew I had to show this to Kyle. But how? He won't talk to me. He's protecting Shannon. If I just send him this evidence, he'll think I faked it. He'd say I was desperate, that I'd do anything to destroy his marriage. I needed support. Someone who carried weight in the company, someone Kyle trusted. The next day, I called Harrison Till. He was one of 3 members of the Medicore Solutions Board of Directors. He had invested in the company early on, when Kyle was just starting the business. Harrison was 55, had experience in venture capital, and looked his age, gray hair, thin-rimmed glasses, always in a suit. We rarely saw each other, but he was always polite. We met at a coffee shop in the city center. Harrison sat by the window drinking espresso. When I approached, he smiled. Dolores, it's good to see you. I heard about the conflict between you and Kyle. Where? He told me himself at the last board meeting. He said you fired Shannon without good reason, that there was a personal conflict between you. I sat down across from him. That's not exactly true. I figured as much. Even before I joined this company, Richard always told me that you were the smartest person he knew. He said you analyzed his deals better than any consultant, that without you, he wouldn't have made half of what he did. I was surprised. Richard never told me that. He rarely praised me, thinking that I was just doing my job. He said that? Yes, he was proud of you, and I always considered you the brains of this business, even when you weren't in the office. Harrison leaned closer. If you need support on the board, I'm on your side. I took out the folder Cleveland had given me. I put it on the table. Take a look at this. Harrison opened the folder. He read silently, turning the pages. His face grew increasingly tense. When he finished, he looked at me. Are you sure this is true? Yes, I hired a detective. Everything has been verified. He sighed, took off his glasses, and rubbed his nose. If this gets out, the company will be in trouble. Scandal, lawsuits, loss of reputation. Investors will be the first to flee. I know. What do you want to do? I didn't know. Part of me wanted to show everything to Kyle immediately to shatter his illusions. Another part whispered, his wife is pregnant. And if you do this now, he will break. He might hate you even more for destroying his family. I don't know yet, I admitted. Dolores, you are a strong woman. You will make the right choice. But remember, the longer you wait, the more time Shannon has to hurt you. She's already looking for ways to take your shares away. If she finds a lawyer who agrees to take the case, you'll end up in court. I nodded. He was right. But I still didn't know what to do. That evening, when I opened my email, I saw a new message. No subject line, no sender name. The address looked random, a string of numbers and letters. I opened it. There was only one line. Are you looking for the truth about Shannon? Get a DNA test done on the twins. You might be surprised. I read it over and over again. A DNA test? What does that mean? Is someone hinting that Mia and Liam aren't Kyle's? That's impossible. They look like him. They have his hair, his smile. Liam even has the same dimple on his chin that Kyle had as a child. But what if... I stared at the screen, feeling my hands grow cold. Who could have sent this? Someone from the company? Someone who knows Shannon better than I do? Maybe one of her colleagues who saw too much? I clicked reply and wrote, "Who are you? Why are you writing this to me?" I sent it. I waited. I refreshed my email every few minutes, but no reply came. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the anonymous letter. Get a DNA test done on the twins. Why the twins? Why not the baby Shannon is carrying? Someone knows something I don't. Someone wants me to dig deeper. I got up at 5 in the morning, made coffee, sat down at the table. I looked at the folder Cleveland had given me. Photos, letters, contracts. All of it proved that Shannon had been cheating on Kyle, stealing money from the company. But was it enough? Would he believe me? Would he say I was a desperate old woman who had made it all up to ruin his marriage? I needed support. Not from Harrison. He's a businessman. He's interested in money, not family. I needed Amber. I called her in the evening. "Mom, is everything okay? Amber, come see me tomorrow with Travis if you can. We need to talk." She heard something in my voice because she didn't ask any more questions. Okay, but Travis might not be able to come. He's working a shift at the factory and there's no foreman. He'll probably be stuck at work until evening, but I'll come right after lunch. The next day, Amber arrived at 2 o'clock. She looked worried, her hair tied back in a ponytail, no makeup on her face. We sat down at the kitchen table. I put the folder in front of her. "What's this?" Amber asked. "Open it." She opened it. She saw the first photo, Shannon and Derek outside the hotel kissing. Her face paled. "My God." "Keep reading," I said. Amber flipped through the pages. She read the letters and looked at the contracts. Her hands were shaking. When she finished, she looked at me with wide eyes. "Mom, is this true?" "Yes." I hired a detective. He checked everything. Amber picked up one of the letters and read it again, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. "She stole money," she whispered, "from Kyle's company, and she cheated on him all this time." "Yes." "Fake contracts with her lover's company. She received bonuses for sales that never happened. She made about $45,000 a year from it." Amber covered her face with her hands. I could see her shoulders shaking. How could she? Kyle loved her so much. He gave her everything. "Not everyone is satisfied with what they have," I said quietly. Amber wiped her eyes and looked at me. "Does Kyle know?" "No." "You have to show him this, right now. He won't talk to me. He'll hate me even more if I just send it to him. He'll say I made it up." Amber thought for a moment. "Then I'll show him." "From me?" "No, he has to hear it from me. Otherwise he'll never believe me, but I need your support. If you're there when I show him the evidence, he won't be able to just kick me out." Amber nodded firmly. "I'll be there, always." She stood up and walked to the window. She stood silently looking out at the street. "You know, Mom, sometimes I think we never really know the people we love. Travis, too." She stopped herself. "What about Travis?" "Nothing. He's just so closed off sometimes. I don't always understand what's on his mind." I didn't press her. Every couple has their secrets. Amber turned to me. "Mom, I'm on your side. I always have been. But Kyle, he's going to break. Shannon is pregnant. She's carrying his child." I sighed. "There's one more thing." I told her about the anonymous letter, about the offer to do a DNA test on the twins. Amber shuddered. "Do you think they're not Kyle's?" "I don't know, but someone wants me to check, someone who knows something important." "Who could have sent that letter?" "I don't know. Maybe someone from the company, someone who saw too much." Amber sat back down at the table. "It could be a trap. Someone wants you to look crazy. Imagine you do the DNA test. It turns out the kids are Kyle's, and then he breaks up with you for good. He'll say you don't even trust your own grandchildren." I thought about it. She was right. But something told me the letter wasn't a coincidence. Someone knows the truth. Someone wants me to find out. I'm going to do the test anyway, I said. How? Kyle won't give you access to the children. Through the courts. Amber looked at me in surprise. You want to sue Kyle? No, I want to initiate a legal request for a DNA test through a lawyer. There is a basis for it. Financial inheritance issues. Richard left a trust fund for his biological grandchildren. As the executor of the will, I have the right to confirm whether Mia and Liam are biologically related to him. Amber was silent for a long time, then nodded. That's harsh, but probably the right thing to do. Do what you think is necessary, but promise me, when you get the results, you'll show them to Kyle along with this folder. He needs to know everything. I promise. We sat in the kitchen for another hour. Amber cried, and I tried to comfort her. I made more coffee and looked out the window. I felt something tightening inside me. I was destroying my son's family, even if he wasn't to blame, even if Shannon was the only one to blame. I was the one revealing the truth, and the truth always hurts. When Amber left, I sat in the empty house and thought, who sent that letter? Why now? And why? Anonymously. The next day, I called Marlo Grayson. I asked to meet him urgently. He came to my house in the evening and looked worried. Dolores, what happened? I told him about the letter, about wanting to initiate a DNA test. Marlo listened, frowning. Are you sure you want to do this? Kyle will be angry. Shannon, too. I'm sure. Okay. Technically, you have the right. Richard's trust fund is indeed tied to biological kinship. I'll file a request with the court, but it will take time. How long? 2 to 3 weeks, maybe longer if Kyle resists. I nodded. Marlo left, and I sat in the empty living room. Wait 2 weeks, the longest 2 weeks of my life. Kyle did resist. He hired a lawyer and tried to block the request. His lawyer, a young man named Brent Clarkson, wrote a formal letter to Marlo calling my request psychological pressure on minors and an attempt to manipulate family relationships. But the court granted my petition. The grounds were legal. The test was scheduled for Wednesday, 2 weeks after my request. I didn't see Mia and Liam that day. The nurse conducted the test in the presence of Kyle and his lawyer. I wasn't even allowed to be in the building. Amber called me in the evening and said that Kyle looked angry but didn't say a word. Shannon was with him, holding his hand as if to protect him. When the nurse took saliva samples from the twins, Mia started crying. Liam asked where his grandmother was. Kyle told them that their grandmother was sick. Amber cried into the phone as she told me this. I listened silently, feeling my heart break. The results were due in 2 weeks. I waited. Every day seemed endless. I tried to work, but I couldn't concentrate. I consulted with clients mechanically and replied to letters briefly. Amber called every day to support me. I hardly saw Travis. Amber said he was swamped at work, working 12 hours a day. Once Amber came to me with food, saying she was worried that I wasn't eating. We ate together in silence. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Finally, on Friday, 14 days after the test, Marlo called. Dolores, the results are in. They're in your email. Open it. I sat down at the computer. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely control the mouse. I opened my email. I saw a letter from the lab. I clicked on it. A PDF file loaded. I read slowly, poring over every word. Sample 1, Mia Kittredge. Sample 2, Liam Kittredge. Reference sample, Kyle Kittredge. Result, probability of paternity, 99.99%. Conclusion, Kyle Kittredge is the biological father of Mia and Liam Kittredge. I closed my eyes. I felt tears running down my cheeks. They are his children. They are my grandchildren. I didn't know whether to be happy or cry. Whoever sent me that letter was wrong, or wanted to make me look crazy. But then why the letter? Why did someone want me to test the twins? I sent the results to Amber. She called back in 5 minutes. Mom, this is great. Mia and Liam are Kyle's children. Yes. Now you can show him the evidence about Shannon. He can't say you're just jealous or trying to destroy his family. You have the facts." She was right. I called Kyle. He didn't answer. I called again. Still no answer. So I texted him, "Kyle, I need to talk to you. It's important. I'll come over tomorrow at 9 in the morning. Be home." He didn't reply. But the next morning when I drove up to his house, he was home. I saw his car in the driveway. Shannon had to leave for a meeting with a client. Amber found out about it through a friend who works at the company. I had an hour, maybe more. I knocked on the door. I waited. Finally, the door opened. Kyle stood in the doorway, wearing jeans and a gray t-shirt. He looked tired and unshaven. He looked at me coldly. "What do you want?" "To talk. About Shannon. I don't want to hear your accusations. These aren't accusations. These are facts." He wanted to close the door, but I put my hand on the doorknob. "Kyle, please, give me 5 minutes. If after that you want me to leave, I'll leave. Forever." He looked at me for a long time, then stepped back. I went inside. The house was clean but empty. Children's toys were scattered on the living room floor. I walked into the kitchen and put the folder on the table. Kyle stood in the doorway with his arms crossed over his chest. "What is this?" "Sit down." He sat down reluctantly. I opened the folder and placed the first photo in front of him. Shannon and Derek outside the hotel. Kyle looked at the photo. His face didn't change. "It could be anyone. It's Shannon and Derek Knowles, your company's medical equipment supplier." I put down the other photos. They're in a restaurant, they're kissing by a car, they're entering a hotel room. Kyle looked at each photo silently. His jaw tightened. "I hired a detective," I said quietly. "He followed Shannon for 2 weeks. They meet twice a week, every Wednesday and Friday at the Riverside Inn. Always the same room, 213. Kyle was silent. His fingers turned white on the edge of the table. "There's more." I showed him the contracts, the financial documents. I explained about the fictitious deals, about the money Shannon and Derek stole from the company. Kyle listened, his face growing paler and paler. When I finished, he ran his hand over his face. "And one last thing." I took out the printouts of the letters. I put them in front of him. Kyle took the first letter and began to read. I saw his eyes skimming the lines. I saw his hands trembling. "I'm tired of playing the role of the perfect wife. Kyle is boring. All he talks about is business." He put the letter down and picked up the next one. "His mother has shares. If I can convince Kyle to strip her of her control, we'll get everything." Kyle closed his eyes. He sat motionless, clutching the letters in his hands. I waited. The silence seemed endless. A car drove by outside the window. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Finally, he looked at me. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because I couldn't before. You wouldn't talk to me. You defended her." "What about the DNA test? Did you really think Mia and Liam weren't my children?" I sighed. "I got an anonymous letter. Someone advised me to have the twins tested." I didn't know if it was true, but I needed an answer. "And I'm glad they're your children, Kyle." "I always knew they were yours." But I needed to confirm it. He was silent again. Then he got up and walked over to the window. He stood there, looking out at the street. "She's pregnant," he said quietly. "I know." "Do you think the baby isn't mine?" I didn't know how to respond. The truth? A lie? I don't know, Kayla. But I'm afraid even she doesn't know, and that's what I'm most afraid of. He turned to me. His eyes were red. I trusted her. I loved her. I gave her everything I had. I know. I walked over to him, wanting to hug him, but he stepped back. "I need time," he said hoarsely. I nodded. "Take as much as you need." I gathered my folder and walked to the door. As I was opening it, I heard the sound of a key in the lock on the other side. The door opened. Shannon was standing in the doorway. She was holding grocery bags and smiling, but when she saw me, the smile disappeared. Her gaze shifted to Kyle, who was standing in the middle of the living room with the folder in his hands. Then to the table where the photos and letters lay. Her face paled. "Kyle," she began, but her voice trembled. He raised his hand to stop her. "We need to talk, Shannon," he said coldly, "and this time I won't tolerate any lies." Shannon stood motionless, staring at him with wide eyes. The grocery bags fell to the floor. Apples rolled across the tile. One rolled right up to my feet. It had been 4 months since I left Kyle and Shannon face to face with the truth. 4 months that changed everything. The first month was hell. Kyle didn't call me. Amber told me bits and pieces. Shannon tried to deny everything, screamed, cried, accused me of fabricating evidence. But Kyle showed her the correspondence. She couldn't explain how I could have known details that only she and Derek knew. Then she changed tactics. She said Derek had manipulated her, that she didn't want to cheat, but felt lonely because Kyle was always working. Kyle didn't believe her. He had a DNA test done before the baby was born. Through amniocentesis, a risky procedure that Shannon initially refused to do. But when he gave her an ultimatum, either the test or he would file for divorce without any agreement, she agreed. The results came back 2 weeks later. The baby wasn't Kyle's. The probability of paternity was less than 1%. Amber told me this on the phone. I was sitting in the kitchen holding the receiver with a trembling hand. "He was crying, Mom," Amber said quietly. I've never seen Kyle cry like that. Not even when Dad died. He was sitting on the bathroom floor, just sobbing. And I could hear it through the door. I didn't know what to say. I had saved him from an even bigger disaster, but that didn't make his pain any less. Shannon left a week after receiving the results, back to Ohio, to her mother. Kyle gave her money, $30,000 as part of the agreement so she wouldn't fight the divorce. The lawyers got everything done quickly. Shannon signed a waiver of any claims to the company, the house, even the right to see Mia and Liam without Kyle's permission. Marlo told me that she looked broken at the last meeting, sitting silently, signing papers mechanically, not looking anyone in the eye. She gave birth to a girl in February. She named her Grace. Amber saw a photo on social media. Shannon was holding the baby in her arms, smiling, but the smile looked empty. There was no comment from Derek under the photo. He had also disappeared. His company was being investigated for fictitious contracts, and he had declared bankruptcy. The last I heard, he moved to Texas and works as a manager at a small firm. Shannon never mentioned him publicly again. The second month was more difficult. Kyle finally called me. Briefly, curtly. "Mom, I need your help at the company. Harrison says you have experience in financial auditing. We need to review all contracts from the last 3 years. "Sure," I replied. "That doesn't mean I've forgiven you for everything." "I know." He hung up. But it was a start. I started coming to the office 3 times a week. I sat in a small meeting room checking contracts, invoices, reports. I found 2 more fictitious contracts that Cleveland didn't know about. The total amount stolen was over $200,000. Kyle sued Derek's company, but there was nothing left. Only debts. Sometimes Kyle would come into the meeting room and sit across from me. We discussed numbers, graphs, strategies. He didn't look me in the eye, but he listened. Sometimes he even asked my opinion. Once he said, "You were right about that supplier 3 years ago. I didn't listen, it was a mistake." It wasn't an apology, but it was an admission. Once, at the end of March, he stayed after the meeting. "Mom, I want you to see Mia and Liam." I looked up. "Do they ask about me?" "Every day. I told them you were sick, that you were getting better. But they miss you. Liam drew you a card. Mia made a bead bracelet. And you?" He finally looked at me. "I'm still angry. Angry that you didn't tell me about the shares earlier. Angry that you dug up dirt on Shannon without warning me. Angry that you were right and I was a blind idiot. Kyle, but I also understand. You saved me. If it weren't for you, I would have spent my whole life with a woman who cheated on me. I would have raised someone else's child. I would have lost my company because she planned to take control. So, thank you. Even if it hurts to admit it. I couldn't hold back the tears. He stood up, walked over, and hugged me reluctantly. But he hugged me. I could feel him shaking. My little boy who grew up and broke down and is now learning to live again. Come on, Saturday. The kids will be happy. That Saturday was the best day in months. Mia and Liam ran out of the house as soon as they saw my car. They hugged me so tightly that I could hardly breathe. Liam asked why I had been sick for so long. Mia wanted to know if I had brought them gifts. They talked at the same time, interrupting each other, and I laughed through my tears. I had a painting set for Mia, a construction set for Liam. We sat on the living room floor painting and building. Kyle watched from the kitchen, smiling occasionally. For the first time in many months, I saw his real smile. Not a forced, polite one, but a genuine one. In the evening, when the children were asleep, Kyle and I drank tea on the terrace. "How did you tell them about Shannon?" I asked. Carefully, that Mom made mistakes, that she lives far away and can't come to visit. Liam asked if it was because of him. I said no, that adults sometimes do stupid things that have nothing to do with children, that he and Mia are the best kids in the world, and none of what happened is their fault. Did they miss her? The first month, yes. Mia cried every night, now less. Children adapt faster than we think. It's both sad and good. He fell silent, looking at the stars. "Mom, I was thinking about Shannon, about whether I really loved her, whether she was who I thought she was. And you know what? I'm not sure. Maybe I loved the idea of her. The perfect wife, the perfect family, the perfect life, but I didn't know the real Shannon. I didn't want to know her." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You're still young. You'll have another family, another love. Maybe, but right now, I just want to be a dad and learn to trust again. That's the hardest part." We sat in silence, listening to the crickets. The third and fourth months passed more peacefully. Kyle and I worked together to rebuild the company. Garrison helped by bringing in new investors and finding an honest supplier to replace Derek. Sales began to grow. Kyle even considered opening a second office. I saw Mia and Liam every weekend. We baked cookies, went to the park, watched cartoons. They stopped asking about Shannon. Sometimes Mia would say, "Mom loved this song," or "Mom always cooked like this." But these were memories, not longing. Amber and Travis came over for dinner every Wednesday. One evening, as we sat at the table, Travis suddenly said, "Dolores, I have something to tell you." I looked at him. He looked tense, twirling his fork in his hands. "What is it?" "That anonymous letter." "About the DNA test." I sent it. I froze with my fork in my hand. Amber also looked at him in surprise. "You?" Travis nodded. "I've suspected Shannon for a long time. I saw how she behaved at corporate parties, too openly with one of the suppliers. Once I went to the mall for some work supplies and saw her near the hotel. She didn't notice me, but I remembered. I remembered the license plate number of the car parked nearby. Then I happened to see the same car near Kyle's office. It was Derek. He fell silent and stared at his plate. "When the conflict between you and Kyle began, I realized you were looking for the truth, but I wasn't sure if Shannon was really cheating or if it was just my suspicions. If I had come to you myself and been wrong, I would have looked paranoid. Amber might have thought I was meddling in other people's business. Kyle might have hated me. So I sent an anonymous letter. I thought, if you check the twins and they turn out to be Kyle's, at least that will rule out one possibility. And if not, you'll keep digging." I looked at him silently. I felt a wave of gratitude rising inside me. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Because I was afraid. I was afraid Amber would think I didn't trust her. I was afraid you would think I was manipulating the situation. I was afraid Kyle would find out and blame me for destroying his marriage. But now that it's over, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I couldn't live with this secret. Amber took his hand. You did the right thing. You helped Mom. You saved Kyle. I didn't know it would turn out this way, Travis said quietly, but I'm glad the truth came out, even if it's painful. I stood up, walked over to him, and hugged him. Thank you, Travis. Thank you for not staying silent. Thank you for being braver than all of us. He smiled awkwardly. I just couldn't watch Shannon destroy your family. I couldn't keep quiet when I knew something was wrong. That conversation changed something between us. Travis was no longer just Amber's husband. He became part of the family, the part that stays silent but acts when necessary. Now in June, I'm sitting in the garden of my house. Mia and Liam are drawing with chalk on the asphalt. Kyle is inside making lunch. He learned to cook after Shannon left. He says it calms him down, that when he cuts vegetables or mixes ingredients, his mind rests from thoughts. Mia is drawing a rainbow. Liam is drawing a dinosaur. They argue about who draws better. I sit on a bench, watching them smiling. Grandma, Mia says suddenly, why isn't Mom coming? I stroke her dark curly hair. Because sometimes adults make mistakes, Mia, and they need time to fix them. Will she fix them? I don't know, sweetie, but we love you. Dad, me, Amber, Travis. You'll never be alone. Liam comes up to me and hugs me around the neck. Dad said you're the smartest grandma in the world. I laugh, feeling warmth in my chest. Dad exaggerates. No, he doesn't, says Kyle, coming out onto the porch. Lunch is ready. Kids, wash your hands. Mia and Liam run into the house. Kyle comes up to me and sits down on the bench. You look good, Mom. Better than a month ago. So do you. We sit in silence, looking at the drawings on the asphalt. A rainbow, a dinosaur, a few crooked hearts. How's the company doing, I ask. Good. Harrison says we'll be profitable by the end of the year. We might even open a branch in Portland. He's already found a location. That's great. Mom, I wanted to tell you, but I'm glad you're here, that you didn't give up, that you protected us, even when I hated you. I take his hand. I'm your mom. I'll always protect you, even when it hurts. He smiles and wipes his eyes. Let's go eat. The children have probably already eaten all the bread. We go into the house. Mia and Liam are sitting at the table, laughing and throwing crumbs at each other. Kyle tells them off, but he's smiling too. I sit down and look at them. My family. Imperfect, broken, but alive. In the evening, when everyone is left, I am alone. I sit in the living room, looking at Richard's photo on the mantelpiece. He is smiling in the picture, young, strong, alive. I say aloud, I did it, Rich. I protected the family, even if it hurt. Even if I lost Kyle for a few months. I didn't let them take what you left us. I put the photo back in its place and go out onto the terrace. The evening is warm, smelling of jasmine. I sit in a rocking chair and look at the stars. Harrison texts me, Dolores, are you still thinking about that conference in Portland? It's in August. If you want, we can go together. I smile and reply, why not? I put my phone away and rock in my chair. I know who I am. I know my worth. The wind carries the smell of mowed grass from the neighbors. Music is playing somewhere in the distance. I close my eyes and feel calm. Maybe this is true happiness. Not fireworks, not passion, not a perfect picture. Just knowing that you did the right thing, that you protected those you love, that you didn't give up, that you turned out to be stronger than you thought. I sit on the terrace until late at night. I think about Shannon, who is now somewhere in Ohio with someone else's child in her arms. I wonder if she regrets it. Does she understand what she has lost? About Kyle, who is learning to live again. About Mia and Liam, who don't yet understand what happened, but feel the changes. About Amber and Travis, who are holding on to each other. And about myself, 51 years old, half my life behind me. But I feel like my real life has just begun. My phone vibrates again. A message from Kyle. Mom, thanks for today. The kids are happy. So am I. I smile and write. I love you. I put my phone down and look at the stars. One of them is especially bright. Maybe it's Richard looking down on me. Maybe he's proud, or maybe it's just a star. But I like to think that he's out there somewhere, and that he knows I didn't let him down. I get up, go into the house, turn off the light, and go to bed. Tomorrow is a new day, a new meeting with Harrison, a new consultation for a client, new plans for the company. Life goes on. It's not perfect, it's not easy, but it's mine.